Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Today we have Bob Bryan on. Bob, welcome.
Good to be here, Will. Nice to see you, buddy.
You too. This has been a podcast episode that I've been looking forward to for a long time. I
Yeah.
know you probably are pretty new to the podcast, but I've been wanting to have you and hopefully Mike at some point on as well. Um, and there's with the podcast there's two different things I'm doing on a consistent basis for the audience. One is helping train them to become better doubles players, and then the other is to help make professional doubles more popular by interviewing pro players and coaches and telling their stories. And one of the questions I always end with that I'm going to start with today is how can we make doubles more popular? So I wanted to start with that with you.
Well, yeah, that's a question we've been asking ourselves for a long time. We all love doubles. We know it's played at the club level, by 95% of the people. And, my wife plays it. There's leagues all over, the world that love doubles. So how do we get doubles more popular at the pro level? I think a lot of it comes down to TV. Those decisions are made by the executives. They want to see the stars. And whether it's Serena Williams brushing her teeth, people want to see that. They don't care what it is. It's just that star power. The only way to create stars is really to get them out to the masses. That's through television. Doesn't look like we're making any traction in those roads. So in 2005, we had there was that lawsuit. We created a Bill of Rights, which was have the doubles draws on site, have scheduling 4 matches at least a week on center court. We put our names on our shirts. I thought that was big. People started to recognize the different teams, the tandems. I wish players would stay together more. There's a lot of players switching around. I wish players from the same country would play together more. So you would
hmm
see that consistency, the Davis Cup teams, the Olympic teams playing together during the tour matches. We've really we've gone over it a lot. As long as the players keep playing with their passion, enthusiasm, I think that's why people enjoyed watching us, is because they knew that we loved what we were doing. They could see that we were having fun on the court. But maybe there needs to be a rule change. There needs to be the sport needs to evolve a little bit. A lot of other sports have evolved with the times, with the technology. Rackets have become more powerful, and then now there's the I formation. The game's gone almost exclusively I, and guys are very close to the net. Makes it tougher on the returner, but also shortens the points. It's probably less beautiful for the fans. There is no ad scoring in the tour level. It makes for some exciting matches, more fast-paced matches. And I know the ATP's shortening the shot clock, letting fans come in and out. I love all those changes, but maybe there needs to be some sort of kitchen. You know, um, maybe start behind the service line until the service hit for the net man.
I think a lot of
Um,
people just got upset, Bob.
no, I know I'm not a huge pickleball guy. Look, but pickleball has gotten really popular because of this kitchen, because of the long
hmm
rallies. Um, it just becomes a little more fun, a little more action,
Yeah.
and maybe you do something like that for tennis. You keep the guy off the net a little bit, and make the return a little easier to find a lane. There'll be more first volleys. You'll bring that first volley back into play. You had all those beautiful players from the 80s and the 90s, the Woodies, that had incredible first volleys. And that's a lot of what doubles was about. Um, the touch. Right now, it's a little bit of a power game,
hmm
and it's hard for the club player and the people on site to really relate to that because that's not the way they're playing it. Um, so, yeah, that's maybe you go to one serve. I know in that UTS, Moritagalus, they have one serve, and
Yeah.
that makes for some crazy points. So I mean, the crazier the points, the more you'll have those reels, and it'll hit Instagram. Stuff will go viral, and maybe it'll popularize doubles a little more. So
Hmm.
just a few ideas. I mean, look, Wimbledon slowed down the grass because the singles points, were becoming too short, and they even at times they would crack the balls 2 weeks before the tournament, so the balls were a little softer.
Hmm.
Slowed down tennis. It became a little more about baseline at Wimbledon, and the points have gotten a little better. You can't deny that. I know people like the variety of tennis. They like having the rafter play against the Agassi, and so did I. But points have become longer on the grass courts, and I think fans are eating that up.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to go back to something you said at the beginning where people will watch Serena brush her teeth.
Yeah.
This is it's something like I said, I ask pretty much every guest on the podcast, maybe close to 100 guests at this point. And I do, for me, like I do think it's really about star power. And
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to Andy on his one of his US Open recaps the other day on Served, and he's got a very different look on doubles than I do. And I think one of the things that he talked about was when singles players play doubles, there's always a crowd. But I don't think it's because they're singles players. I think it's because they're tennis stars, right? So
Yeah.
I think they need the tours, if they can do a better job of marketing the doubles players, not necessarily the doubles product, but if people can start to get to know the doubles players, then there will be tennis stars on the doubles tour, and then people will want to follow.
I agree
Um,
with that. I know when this doubles revolution marketing campaign came out about 20 years ago, there's a lot of materials. There's autograph cards, there's posters of the doubles teams, there was water bottles with the doubles players' faces on them.
mhm.
Yeah, they did it. They did a really good job of putting the doubles teams in the programs and trying to popularize the players, tell their stories a little more. ATP's doing an okay job. I think they could do a better job, you know, um, telling the stories. But you're right. Like just because it's a singles team on the court doesn't mean there's going to be a big crowd. Doesn't mean that people want to go watch. There are singles players that are mega stars that that people are going to show up. If Federer is out there, he's going to pack a stadium, whether it's singles or doubles.
Mhm.
You put Alcaraz center. All these guys are going to sell it out. Uh, and I know tournament directors want them, in the doubles draws. They know they're going to fill more stadiums, but if it's a guy 40 in the world, if it's Baez, in Indian Wells, I'm not sure he's going to put more butts in the seats than Jamie Murray.
Yeah.
There's no guarantees. There's the guys that sell tickets, and then but I do like these singles doubles matchups. I know Madrid tested that out,
Mhm.
and I thought that was interesting. To have doubles teams seated all the way down the top 8 or 16. I forgot what they did, but they created these singles doubles matchups, which were pleasing to the eye. Guys on the baseline, guys at net,
Mhm.
guys with incredibly strong ground strokes versus guys with incredibly quick hands. So
Mhm.
I don't mind. I don't mind those tweaks.
What about mixed doubles? Where does that fit into all this for you? Because you talked about how the game's gotten so fast, and for me, that's mostly the men's side, right? Like when I talk to club level players, I say if you want to learn how to play at the club level, watch the WTA doubles because there's a few more kind of lobs during the rally, and there's a lot more regular formation on the WTA side. But what about mixed? Where does that fit in for you?
Well, mixed is an opportunity to win a Grand Slam. That was always my view of it. I didn't want to take away from what I was doing on the doubles court with Mike, but look, it's a chance to make a good check, and it's a chance to win a slam. It's not going to put you in the magazines or on the front page of the paper, but I had some amazing mixed moments, and if you get through those first few rounds, you're in the semifinals, and you have a good look at the finish line, and you have a good look of playing on center court and playing for a trophy and being on TV, and just good feelings. And a lot of these guys that win these mixed slams are winning the first slam in their country's history. They go home to a huge reception back home,
Mhm.
and the Grand Slam's a Grand Slam.
Mhm.
So that's my view. I mean, the WTA, yeah, it's played a little bit different way, but the rallies are nice to watch, and um, the points are longer. Women's volleyball. I remember going to matches at Stanford. We had this famous player, Carrie Walsh, who won a few gold medals in beach
Yeah, I
later in her
remember her.
career, but she played at Stanford. We knew her, and the women's team would play at Maples Pavilion, which seated 15,000, and it's because those rallies were long. We'd go watch the men's team, and they'd play at Burnham Pavilion, and there was only 200 people there. So the
Mm.
women's volleyball, I don't know whether it's they're wearing those short little shorts, which is pretty sexy. That probably had something to do with it, but also there's something about it being a little more pleasing to the eye, the long rallies. So I would
Mhm.
like to see that come back a little bit into men's doubles.
Mhm. So I want to move on to Olympics and Davis Cup. I want to ask about kind of your transition from being a player to kind of a coach slash captain role. But before I get to that, I actually want to ask about a specific moment from the Olympics. I asked Austin and Rajiv this a few months ago on the podcast. So you're sitting in the box, and Austin and Rajiv are playing Alcaraz and Nadal on Philippe Chatrier at Roland Garros at the Olympics, and they're serving for the match. Austin is, and he comes out and he double faults the first point, and the crowd just erupts.
Yeah.
Share with us what's going through your head, and then also how are you viewing kind of your role on the team during that moment? Like, what do you need to do in that moment to kind of settle Austin and Raj?
Well, that was a monumental match for them, also for doubles. There's a lot
Hmm.
of turmoil right now with tournament directors and just a lot of politics going on in doubles we've got a lot of doubles players a little bit scared and a little uneasy. So I felt like this match was the crossroads moment. If Austin and Raj, two legends of the game, former number ones, Grand Slam champions, go out and get whomped by a fairly new team, Nadal and Alcaraz, on center court in the biggest doubles moment in recent history, that wouldn't look good. And
Hmm.
these guys, they were playing for themselves, they were playing for their country, but they're also playing for their sport. And both guys really stepped up. I mean, my brother was doing a great job with them all week. I was a little bit scattered. I doing singles matches, watching a ton of tennis, doing a lot of warm ups, and Mike was working with them a lot
Hmm.
mentally, but also sharpening up their games on the court. I mean, our role was just to basically show that we're there, that we were their rock, that we had confidence in them and we believed in them. We really did. And so that if they ever looked up to the box, they could see that on our face. And I mean, we knew it wasn't going to be an easy time for Austin to serve for the match against these two guys. They've pulled the rabbit out of the hat many times on that court, both of them. You know, they've held up the trophy, and they're used to having good things happen out there. And Austin's human, just like anyone. I think a lot of people could relate to a double fault on the first point. It's just
Yeah.
that's what humans do. They're feeling a little bit soft in the legs, and the arm feels a little loose, and he got tight. But look, that's tennis, and he steadied himself, and they finished the job. And they both were studs out there. They kept the energy the whole time, but they also kept the look in their eyes. I think in doubles, the energy is so key. If a team can see you have a little lapse in belief or energy, then they'll feed on it. And Austin and Raj didn't give them anything to have after that first double fault.
Hmm. Yeah, it was a good Olympics for doubles in general, being, the finals was an all doubles, like I guess double specialist finals. I guess the only team that did super well was the other
Yeah,
American team,
yeah,
Tommy Paul and Taylor Fritz. And Paul certainly is, has potential to be a very good doubles player anyways. Uh, Another thing I wanted to ask about is with Olympics and Davis Cup, what was the most, or what has been the most kind of surprising transition from player to coach captain? Is there anything that has happened so far or that has been maybe more difficult or more challenging than you expected?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is when you retire, you've had a successful tennis career. You think that coaching is going to be easy. You think that um, how this game works, but
Mm,
we've played tennis since we were 2 years old, and a lot of this stuff is baked into your subconscious. It's like breathing, the footwork, the timing, all that stuff. You don't know how to verbalize, and you really don't know how to teach it because it just comes instinctually at this stage. So yeah, just having to watch hundreds of matches and really learn from the great coaches. I've spent time with Brad Stein, and I've hung around Anacone and a lot of these great minds, Saviano, Berger, and just it's been fun to learn, to study it, to pick the brain. But also, coaching is about the player. It's different communication for everyone that you're with, and some players like to hear a lot of stuff, but it's really a different language. You got to use different timing. Sometimes less is more. Great coach. There could be a great coach that overcoaches, and then the player shuts down. So
mhm,
I really see that when I'm around these guys. Is they'll bite their tongue, and then they'll say one little thing maybe in a practice that will be just a gold nugget. Um,
mm,
but a lot of the stuff is done also between the ears, and just instilling confidence in the guys, and making sure that you're behind them, and you're always going to be there. And it's a fun, it's different, it's a different kind of stress. But I'm enjoying it. But there's a ton to learn. It's not, like I said, you don't just come off the tour and know it all just because you had a good career.
mhm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, there's a story that came to mind for me from last year. I was working with this D1 program, and we were working with the girls doubles teams, and we were running through this drill, and this girl kept trying to hit her volleys really hard, but it
Yeah,
was a situation where they were all four up, so you want to kind of soften it a little bit so that it drops to their feet.
yeah,
And I kept trying to explain it to her, and I explained it once. We went and did the drill. She didn't get it. I explained it a different way. We went and did the drill again. She didn't get it. And then the third time, I explained it a slightly different way. And then all of a sudden, she got it, and she was the best player on the court.
that's
And
amazing.
it's really interesting. It's one of the most fun parts of coaching, obviously at a different level than you, but for me is trying to kind of find that language that resonates with each player on the court. And it's
Yeah,
certainly a challenge transitioning from player to coach. Um, how has you talked earlier about how the game's changed a little bit? So I'm interested to hear, like, since you turned pro, which I believe I read was 98. Um,
yeah.
Talk a little bit about how the game has changed, and then specifically, let's say if we rolled back the clock, but it was still 2024. Let's say you're going to turn pro tomorrow. What would you focus on for double success today versus what you focused on back in 98?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all seen the evolution of doubles, from Mac Fleming, into the Woodies, into the era of baseline tennis. You have half of the guys serving and staying back. The technology returns have gotten rough. There's a lot of spin on the ball, and now there's that I formation, which players are going to. Um, I used a lot of body serves in my career. I felt like that was a really great way to get a ball to kind of trickle across the middle. Hit a great body serve in the left hip, and then Mike can get kind of in the middle and do some damage. I feel like guys are now serving for the spots.
Mhm.
Rajiv and Austin are now going for the corners. They're dropping their first serve percentage a little bit, but they're going for the free point. Maybe that's because, yeah, if the ball hits the middles of the strings of a singles player, that thing's going to be really hard to dig out. So they're taking a chance. Yeah, I mean, look, and the scouting and the analytics have become crazy. You know, Will, you've done a lot of scouting for the Olympics and the Davis Cup, and you know what goes into that. But I don't feel like there's any surprises right now. Guys are going out there with a very clear game plan. If you're not a complete player, and if you have holes in your underwear, like we like to say, then they're going to get exposed.
Mhm.
So look, if I was coming out today, or if I was coaching a kid that was going to try to make it on the tour in doubles, I would just say, hey, you got to be complete. We got to work on the volleys. We got to work on every aspect of the game. You got to be able to hit ground strokes with thinner. You can't, be scared to be in a baseline rally with one of these top singles guys. You can't just come in on nothing. You got to be able to hang there, wait for the opportunity. But you also got to be able to have quick hands and be a great athlete. The training now. Maybe in the '90s there was little guys that were a little bit slower, not as quick. I feel like all it gets exposed now. The chip
Mhm.
lobs. You have to be very explosive. You have to have a trainer. You have to travel with a physio and do all the right things, or you're not going to have a job.
Yeah. So next I want to ask you about I want you to kind of share, I guess, a secret with the audience. If there's anything that comes to mind, any like specific strategies or plays or tactics that you and Mike used to run on tour that just worked over and over again that nobody maybe knew about or nobody picked up on at the time.
Uh, I mean, we always had a very clear outlook on who we were going to attack. We called it the Huckleberry. I don't know if you've ever heard us talk about this, but if Leander Paez and his partner at the net, we're not hitting it to Leander.
Mm,
We're going to his partner. Maybe if they're on the baseline, maybe we're going at Leander. But we had a clear guy that we wanted to attack at net, and we had a clear guy that we wanted to attack on the baseline. This kept things very, very simple for us. And it also helped us look like we were reflex gods at times, because I was only looking at one guy. If Mike was setting up for a second ball, I knew where Mike was going to hit it. Um,
mm,
yeah, I feel like that's something that sometimes gets overlooked is who are we going to attack, and maybe it's just one volley. I know there's a guy, David Rickle. He didn't have a forehand volley. He only had backhand volley, and he would hit it from way on the other side of his body. So if you could get it over to the forehand volley, you're in good shape. And
mm.
but yeah, I mean, everyone kind of knows how we played. You know, I think our biggest weapons were the fact that we weren't going to give up on each other. We were in it for the long run. We were never really nervous about having a bad match, because Mike wasn't going to go looking for greener pastures. That gave us a freedom to really take risk. And I think the fact that we were open to communication after these matches, and we would not kind of fracture and go to opposite sides of the locker room after a tough match. We would stay together, wouldn't go talk behind each other's backs. Yeah, we had some rough communication at times, as you know, but we were able to air it out and really move forward, so it didn't linger week after week after week. So
Hmm. Yeah, that reminds me of I spoke with Murphy Jensen earlier this year, and he talked about how he was in a rough stretch with Luke before they won Roland Garros, and
yeah,
they had lost like several first rounds in a row. And Murphy said he had a conversation with Luke, and Luke was like, "I'm not finding a new partner."
that's
And
great.
then they went on to win like a few lead up tournaments to Roland Garros and then win the French Open. And it seemed to like release some tension for him and some like nervousness for him. Um, so
Yeah,
that kind of commitment, I feel like is it's hard for me because I'm more of a math guy, so it's not measurable, but it's very underrated, you know?
yeah, I think that probably helped Murphy a lot, because Luke had a good singles career. Luke was very talented. Murphy as well, like great serve in return, but you could tell Murphy was a little more insecure. So just Luke saying that to him probably opened Murphy's game up to really, yeah, go for it in those big moments at the French. They saved match points. They're under, extreme amount of pressure at times in those matches, and they came up with the goods. So
Yeah. Awesome, Bob. I know you got to run, so we will hop off here. Thanks a ton for coming on. Hopefully, we
yeah,
can do it again at some point down the road.
yeah. Thank you, Will, and thanks for all the help with the U.S. team, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everyone for listening. I'll link to everything in the show notes, and I will talk to you all soon.
Take care.